Introducing VPA, comprehensive and powerful virtual performance appraisal platform, now available on vStaff. So it comes complete, comprehensive management, input, forms, merit-based measurements, links with all the right modules, and of course comprehensive reports. What more do you need to drive your employees' performance, engagement, and growth? Request a demo with vStaff today.
We are, looking at the year that we are in. It's been a year that all our plans and everything that we did, everything had to be thrown out of the window, right? Defining what success really looks like is going to be a big challenge this year, right? And working around goals and altering KPIs is not going to work this year, right? It's not about adjusting numbers. It's not going to be adjusting, a certain statement in the KPI to change things. It's not going to happen, right? But what we need to look at is, take this whole pandemic that we are in, and what we are trying to do today is to share with you all a perspective from different three experts, right? Three experts, business owners, right? And of course, today we have Mr. Supra, not only our HR and business expert, but also leading industrial relations consultant as well. Okay, he's our legal expert today, right? What are we going to talk about today? Ladies and gentlemen, the big question all of us are asking ourselves is this: do we really need to carry out an appraisal this year? Right? With all that we are going through, with all the challenges that we have faced, business has not been exactly the way we wanted, and with the things are out of control, where, we have no say when businesses can run, when they shut down. So it is totally a situation where we had to adapt as we go, right? So today, we have three people here with us. Okay, let me introduce the panel members to you. Firstly, we have Mr. Supra, right? The Executive Director of Aisha Consulting. Right. Supra has been in the business of HR consultancy and business consultancy for the last 20 years. Right. He has led a lot of SMEs, build up their business and help them develop their sustainability, strengthen their sustainability through good HR practices. Right. And next we have Sam, of course, Penang Lang, like me. Right. Sam is the CEO of Charitech Sdn Bhd, a local grown HR software company. Right. Been in the business for the last 11 years. Serving mainly SMEs and also some larger organizations. Right? And Sam is actually, Charitech is kindly hosting this event today, right? And if you all want some free coffee, just message him, okay? All right, and next, and last but not least, our third panelist, we have Mr. Rob, all right? Rob is actually has been in Malaysia for the last 21 years, so you know what? He is almost half Malaysian, so right? Rob came to Malaysia, about 21 years ago. Started here as the Asia Director of infrastructure company, and in 2012 he started Little Gym, business focusing on children development, basically young children development. Maybe Rob, you'd like to share a little bit more about Little Gym and yourself.
Sure. So yeah, we started the Little Gym the Little Gym is actually a US-based global franchise. It's the leading global child physical development center. So we brought that to Malaysia on a franchise basis in 2012. And then since then, we've been slowly opening gyms. We have 4 in the Klang Valley. And then we opened 2 more during the pandemic, which was fantastic timing, but due to commitments and business expansion plans for 2020, that was going to be the fantastic year. It didn't quite work out how we were expecting things, but still happy to be there. We now have gyms in Johor and Penang, so a total of 6 gyms in Malaysia, and we're expanding into Indonesia, hoping to open in Jakarta the first gym in January. So that's sort of our sort of history a little bit. The context I'm bringing, I guess, is a slightly frontline business. We've been sort of hit very hard by the pandemic. because our business is about socialization, our business is about children and the benefits of exercise, children socializing. So our gyms have been closed for a long period of time, so about 12 months over the pandemic. So that's sort of my context of bringing this to this discussion. How do you manage your staff given all those other challenges as well that's going on?
Thank you, Rob. Thank you. That's very nicely put. All right, let's get straight to our discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who posted questions during your registration, thank you very much. And what we have done is that we sort of like took all those questions, we summed it up, and we came up with a list of questions that we thought we should discuss today. All right, and part of the discussion we'll have Mr. Supra, Rob, and Sam sharing with us, right, how they actually how should I say this pandemic wave? How did they ride it? How did they get past it? Where are they now? They'll be sharing. I think that is something we like to share from a real business owner's experience what they're doing. Okay, so let's shoot off. I think this question I'll throw to Mr. Supra. Right, this is a bit of an IR, legal, and all that. So I'll throw this to Mr. Supra. Based on your experience, Mr. Supra, are we legally required to carry out a year-end appraisal? My opinion, my thoughts actually, maybe there is no legal requirement, but it may have a legal implication. I don't know. You share with me. What do you think?
You are absolutely right, Roy Daniel. In the EA or Industrial Relations Act, it does not specify that you must have an annual appraisal to be conducted, okay? But the big but here is when you have a situation when you terminate an employee and he goes to the industrial court, right? The industrial court will ask you to show proof how is this person a non-performer, okay? So that's where you need to have all your documentary evidence and all to substantiate and say there's a gap in performance, where is the gap and why did we decide to terminate? So in that part, it becomes crucial because you need to substantiate your evidence and your documentation, right? But under the law, it's not written you must conduct an annual appraisal. And I also don't believe doing an annual appraisal because what happened in January, you can't even remember in December. If I talk to you about what happened 2 weeks ago, you can't even remember right now, right? So to do an annual appraisal and actually rate people, I think it's actually not that great of an approach. Okay, I think performance review or appraisal should be something that is continuous, right?
Yeah. What would you say? Would you say it'll be a far-fetched for some companies, but and I think both of us have always encouraged quarterly appraisals. I think which is something we always encourage. Would in a pandemic like this, would something like that worked?
I think given the pandemic situation, to say that you carry out a quarterly appraisal and all that would be a bit too far-fetched given, some businesses couldn't operate. Employees were on unpaid leave for the longest period of time. So how do you actually want to monitor performance on someone who's on unpaid, right?
Yep.
So it's a bit too far-fetched, but you can constantly, there are other businesses that strive during the pandemic, right? There are businesses that survived during the pandemic that, they could mobilize and do remote working and all. So then you must think of alternative solutions where, because they were always in the office, you were always in the know how things were working, and put a situation where they're all working from home. So how do you actually have the constant communication, feedback, and all that with the team, right?
Yeah. Now I'm going to throw this to everybody. Now, I've been speaking to SME business owners and sometimes, even friends that I know who are running business, and I threw this question to them, do we really need a performance appraisal this year? And it was I was not surprised with the feedback because half of the guys were going like, no, really not necessary. What am I going to do? Whoa, what do I measure, man? Like Supra just put it, people on unpaid leave, shut down and all that. What do I measure? But on the other side, there are also guys saying, you know what, I think we should measure, right? We should do some form of measurement, right? There must be some element we can find to measure. Because yes, we changed, but there are, along those the change, we need to do something. So there's the two different schools of thoughts. Me personally, I am always for performance appraisal, because to me that's a tool, key tool for any manager or business owner. That's an important thing. But gentlemen, what do you think, the three of you? I'll start with Rob.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I agree with Supra's perspective. I think the year end is somewhat of a red herring here in a way. I think it's about staff appraisal. I'm working with your staff. Some of the small business owners are probably in a similar situation to me, the front end ones, where as a business owner, where we've been so heavily hit by the pandemic, our focus is drawn pretty much to cash flow. It's all about cash flow as a business at the moment. And that there is a bit of a danger there. I'm so focused on cash. I'm working with shopping malls. I'm working with banks, working with, trying to manage the cash. But, we need our staff. If we're going to recover, if we're going to come through this, our business, I think every business, but my business certainly in particular, relies very heavily on staff. I'm going to need my staff to be fully sort of flying for us to recover and come through this pandemic, the recovery period. We've gone through the difficult bit of being closed, and I have had to put people on unpaid, and we can talk about how that went. And now we're in a recovery period, and I need everybody sort of flying. So staff is critical for me at the moment. I don't want to lose key members of staff. That's one thing that did bite us a little bit during the pandemic. We've been very lucky; we haven't lost many staff. But you're so focused on trying to keep things going, and we lost a key member of staff, and then suddenly you've got a bigger problem. So you need to manage this. So I've got cash flow, but staff is definitely my number two critical issue. Retaining my good staff, getting everybody motivated towards our goals, and that's where I agree with Super. Our goals are not annual. We have to sync our performance reviews with our current business objectives, and at the moment they're not annual. So annual review, yes, but really, it needs to be more of a sort of ongoing, continuous process in line with our business objectives at the moment. So getting everybody sort of in line with that, and setting the expectations. So yeah, the short answer is yes, we 100% need performance reviews, but like Super says, perhaps the idea of doing an annual review is, even before the pandemic, was a little bit outdated, I would say, but especially now with such a fast-moving business environment, even if you're not struggling and you're taking advantage of opportunities, you're still at a point where your business is going to be changing at the moment. You've got to align your staffing processes with that. So that would be my sort of answer to yes, you need to do performance reviews.
Good, thank you, Dave. Now, Sam, the more younger business owner, Sam, we are all in the. I'm in the 5 series. Supra is in the 5 series. This is the 3 series.
No. all young
Sam,
and hard, right?
Yep. And I know, and I've now been to your office many times, and I've seen you got a bunch of very young people, young programmers, all working for you. So how did you guys do it during this pandemic? Do you think the appraisal is necessary?
Yeah, I think I agree with yourself and with what Rob said. I think definitely some form of performance review appraisal is I think it's still essential, right? Even with this, even with the new normal, with what's changed so far, because it depends on the purpose, right? Like why do we do the performance reviews, right? So it's it's to apart from assessing the staff member or the employee, right? It's also kind of to look back at what's happened, and also to plan ahead, right? To look ahead and to see so how have the roles changed, right? Jobs, as much as we like to set something in stone in a JD, right? We understand that roles evolve over time, and especially with times like this, with the pandemic sweeping the nation kind of thing, the world, the roles are very much evolving. And so, I guess it comes down to why we do it, right? So I think people want to know that they're at the core of it. People want to know that they're contributing, that they're doing a good job, right? And so
Yeah.
this performance review is kind of like, it's basically a discourse. It's like it's an avenue, it's a channel for a manager and the people that are managing their team to just have that space, that chance to talk, talk shop, talk about work,
Yeah.
and what's going to come ahead, right? So I think yes, very much it's essential. But yeah, as you said, with our team, I think the annual review thing is perhaps like Rob, like you said, I think it's definitely different now. We can't wait till maybe 6 months or a year in to review an entire year, right? Especially because this year has been it's been changing, right? Every quarter has been different. Something new is happening. The policy is changing. We have to adapt, right? So I think this has prompted us, at least from my perspective, to kind of change how we interact with our team, right? Like everyone's working from home now. I don't see my guys half the time. I don't know. I'm sure they're doing what they need to do and they're safe. But for the most part, it's been a paradigm shift in just the way we think about work and people's roles. So yeah, I think that's kind of my take. I think yes, definitely my answer to your question, Daniel, is yeah. I think we definitely still need those reviews. It's just how and when we carry it out now. I guess
Very nicely
probably?
put, Sam. Yep,
Back to you,
virtually.
Yeah, virtually.
Very nice. I think it's very nice. Good thoughts, and the way you put it is very good, right, Mr. Supra? Your thoughts?
I'll talk from a consultant point of view, right? Because as a consultant, you got to do a lot of research and understand what's happening globally, regionally, and all that. Of course, there are two schools of thoughts. One school of thought is, no, we don't see a reason of doing any appraisal or assessment right now because it's not going to make any difference. I'm not going to be rewarding people. There will be no increment, no bonuses, whatever. And why should I review, right? Might as well I just go next year and start my new goals and start planning for 2022, provided there's no lockdown again. Yeah.
From a IHR perspective.
From another point of view, some says yes. Okay, and I tend to agree with this group who says yes, because I feel it's not just about sitting down and trying to review what goals did you have in 2021, right? And what have you achieved, right? You have to look at, okay, you had a certain goals, which the goals had to be modified or changed. Like Rob was saying, from looking at profitability, you just went to cash flow management, right? You just wanted to make sure you survive, you can sustain, right? So the KPI or the KRA here has kind of changed, right? But you still got to monitor this constantly. And I think Rob has done that quite well over this period, right? And I think a lot of businesses have also looked at all the modification or customization to their goals and standards. At the same time, then you got to look into the employee side of things. You know what? Employees were also quite hardly hit. Okay, some of them were placed on unpaid, sat at home, don't know what to do. They then try to go and do job with Grab, Uber, whatever, right? Then you've got those who got salary cuts, okay, and still working, those who got retrenched, right? So you look at all this dimension of the group of people who suffered during this one. And we had, for the first time, mental health issue became more glaring to in the employment context. Something that we kind of never really thought about it before, but now mental issues and all that. So this is where I think when you do your reviews or you do the touch base with your employees, you got to also check with them how they're doing working from home, what are their challenges, right? We cannot just expect that, you're supposed to do this, please get it done right now, right? You got to change that dynamics of it. So for me, doing a review becomes important, and I think, like Sam kind of put it, it is just not about reviewing the KRA and the KPI, but it's also about sitting down with them, identifying what have they done quite well during this period, right? I'm sure they have done something well, right? So identify these good things that they have done, right? Because this could be the trump card for 2022 that you can leverage on the strength and the experience that they have learned from this period, okay? Then what were the challenges? So you got to then see, okay, when I'm going to set my goal for 2022, right, these were the challenges. And if we're going to go through another lockdown, if it happens, how are we going to maneuver ourselves through it? So this gives an opportunity not for you to just sit down and say, you did well, you didn't do well. It's about having a discussion with the employees, identifying their strengths, challenges, and work a plan together with them and re-inspire them and motivate them that, hey, let's go 2022. These are the goals that we're going to set. That's how we're going to achieve it. And in some cases, you know what, in IHR, we are even looking at giving some kind of increment, right? Just to help them through this and inspire them, right? That, yes, we went through a tough time in this last 18 months, but give them something. So we are coming out with some simple, increments and all that, just to remotivate people. Let's get going. This is our goal. And in IHR's case, our 2022 goal is quite ambitious. We are planning to double our revenue. Okay. So,
Nice.
because we believe we can do it, given how robust the team has managed the 18 months, right?
Yeah.
And there was strengths of the team members that I've never seen before that were so glaring this period of time.
Yeah, I think that's something we learned. Yeah, that's something we learned. Thank you. So basically, I do agree with you guys, and sometimes, when you talk to the smaller businesses, guys who are running the 10-man show, running a few, those guys, and actually you find out that you think they are the one who won't do this, but finally, these are the guys who actually do it. They have regular chats with their people. Look, hey, this is the situation we are in. I have one friend, a business owner, who actually invested quite a tidy sum into tooling machines, die cut machines, laser cutter, and all that. He spent about 3 million. Suddenly hit by the pension, his orders were all the MNCs cut his order. He told his people, let's do this. I have a little bit more money. Let me buy a machine so we can make face masks, right? So he went back to all his MNC clients and told them, look here, can you help me? Since you cut my orders, I will make face masks. I'll get all the approvals. Can you buy from me? So he told the team members, let's do this together. But here's the thing. He said, look, with this, I can't pay the salaries that I used to pay. But can I now share this with you for the first 6 months? We'll see how it goes. And then we'll, come back to a reinstate salary. But he did that, right? And now, 2 years down the road, they have actually forgotten about their tooling machinery. It's now already wrapped up and he's already looking for a buyer. They have bought a few more machines. And here's the thing. The staff now, the last year he gave them about, I think 4 or 5, 6 months bonus, I think. So, but he knew they could not pay it one time, right? So he told them, about this 6 months bonus I'm going to give you, I'll divide it in 3 months and I'll pay you with your salary. And the guys are still happy. He don't have to increase people, the same guys running it. Right, but the thing is that, I think this is where Rob and Supra and all three of you touch this. When you actually have a conversation with your people, show them, what, guys, we need to do this together, right? I think that time it will work, right? I think that the important part is that conversation needs to take place. And this is where sometimes when we work in bigger organizations, people say, we got too many staff. Yeah, but each of the staff have their own supervisor or immediate superior, right? To have that conversation. Right, that's where you sometimes need to look at it. Don't look at it as a problem. Rather, you have the structure in place to do that role of having the discussion. What do you think, Mr. Supra?
No, I completely agree. You got to. You see, when you say discussion, the discussion is a form of a review that you are doing.
Yes.
Right. It's we tend to, when we talk about performance review and appraisal, we say, okay, let's get out the forms. Let me now say, Rock, okay, on KRA number 1, you have only met expectations. Why this, right? So I think we've got to change it up now, and I think through the discussion, you will find a lot more information from them. I think the employees can also volunteer a lot more, that I can possibly contribute this area of business. Maybe I wasn't doing this before, but I think over this pandemic, I did some masterclass programs and all, and I've got this new skill to handle your social media, right? So all this you can formulate from here and say, what are the KRAs that you can handle next year, right? And then you set your new targets. So it becomes, the review exercise actually enables you to create a more robust goal and more robust plan for 2022.
That's coming to my next question, right? Business has been bad for some, right? And I would say a lot. But for some industries, it turned out pretty good. And, they're hiring people, they're doing very well, and surprisingly, it is also the OEMs, the contract manufacturers, they are the ones picking up good business and they're doing very well, right? And my question to you guys is this. With the lockdowns, with the workforce limitations, are our goals really relevant, right? Are they going to be relevant? Especially businesses like yours, which are SMEs. Are they still relevant? Or maybe we need to relook everything in terms of our overall goal in the company. What do you think? Who would like to start first? All panel members. Okay, I'll start with Rob.
Okay.
Because Rob, the reason I'm going to ask you most of the time, because Supra is a familiar face, Sam is a familiar face, so always you start with a new face.
Okay. So are goals relevant? Well, I think the obvious answer to that is you have to make your goals relevant, right? So you must have relevant goals, and then you must sort of sync your staff objectives to those goals. So this sort of comes back a little bit to what we were talking about with the idea of an annual appraisal maybe being a little bit outdated or not really appropriate for these times, because our goals simply aren't annual goals at the moment. I feel like I'm working on a daily sort of cycle at times at the moment, but that's probably also not realistic. But certainly realistically, I'm working on a sort of a monthly cycle. We're in a sort of recovery phase at the moment. So we've in terms of our objectives, we've sort of set to at least the end of this year as a pure sort of recovery phase, and we're just focused on sort of a very narrow set of objectives around cash. And bringing back our members, enrolling and getting going, with the idea that then moving into next year, and it's just so happens the year sort of falls like that. It doesn't have to be the beginning of a year. Moving into next year, our goals will then sort of, we can't just continue focusing on cash. That's not that, we're going to have other problems if we do that. So we're currently developing a business plan that will then focus on the broader issues of our company, the quality and so on that leads to the profitability. So we have to align the objectives and the goals of staff with that, basically. So we have a sort of performance review based on that at the moment. I mean, it all goes back to what Supra and the guys were talking about before, communication being the most key thing here. I think if you can establish a culture where you're sort of all in it together at times like this, you're going to find life a lot easier. I mean, performance review sounds very formal. It's about communication. It's not about box ticking. It's about having a genuine sort of communication as best you can and trying to get some sort of working culture where you're all pushing together in the same way. So, we had a discussion right at the beginning of the pandemic and just sort of set out, well, how are we going to approach this? And we just sort of had a sort of town hall forum with the whole staff and sort of said, look, we can either take this, we're going to be hit hard here. We can either sort of be looking at redundancies and trimming our costs to suit the situation, or we're all just in this as a team and we're going to have to just pull through, and we're going to be transparent, and and all the rest of it. And as a team, we went unanimously for being as a team. It's not sort of surprising in a way, and that made the following conversations all make sense. They knew that meant there was going to be a period where we had to be unpaid. Our type of business is such heavy in staff costs that when you lose your revenue, you just can't support the staff costs. So we had to address that head on. We worked with the staff and we gave them other objectives. We set up an online, to get through that, we set up our online, and we said, look, any money that's generated from the online program, that just goes to staff. We're not going to take any money for the company from that. So that became their short-term objective. Now we're on to sort of this recovery phase, and people's objectives is basically to build their salaries back up. It's aligned to the objectives of the company, which is to get back into profitability, so we can pay back debts that we have from the pandemic. So the goals, to go back to the original question, the goals of the staff are aligned to that. We're building up our cash profit, they're building up their salaries in line with that. So they all have we have a variable pay model which everybody's signed up to, which allows them to build up their salary as we recover. And the reason they sign up for that is because we're in it as a team. They can understand it and they do the maths. They know once the business recovers, they're going to be earning as much as they were before, and they have the potential to earn more. So it brings in that sort of forward-looking side as well. If you can, that's the dynamic we're in. We're going to have to all take a short-term hit, but can we paint a picture for the future? Like Sam said, looking forwards is a very important part of this. Can we paint a picture looking forwards of how we are all going to come through this stronger, and we're all going to benefit, so we can take that short-term hit. And luckily, most of my staff are they're all pretty much on board with this sort of model. So going back, there's a long answer to your question, but you have to make your goals relevant. And right now, you have to move really quickly with those goals as well. So our goals are monthly. We're reporting on these things monthly. The teams get extra money if they get to certain cash points, gets fed back in terms of individual team performances and stuff. And that is our performance review at the moment. And then by the end of this year, looking forwards to a lot of role development opportunities and things like this that we're talking to people about now. So people are actually sort of getting bigger opportunities for the future, as a sort of reward for the hard work and the effort right now, and getting us through this pandemic.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Very nicely put, Rob. Very nicely put. Right? Mr. Supra, Rob made a statement just now. Make your goals relevant. I think this is something we both discussed much earlier and all that. What's your take on that, sir? Would you like to share with us?
So I think there's no point having goals, and I think there's a Malay word that is saying, you shop sendiri, you came up with this goal. It's like I just said that I plan to double my revenue next year. Right? So is it a shop sendiri, or is it relevant, or So I had to take all the stats for the last 18 months and stagger the numbers together and say, IHR did grow despite the fact we lost some businesses and some clients and all that, because we had some clients who actually completely had to shut down, right? It's not by choice, right? But at the same time, we had growth in our revenue, right? So I took all that past stats, the 18-month stats, and looked at the overall costing and read it to recalibrate the goals. Of course, when I say we're going to double the revenue, okay, like what Rob said, to be relevant, I've got my plan A, my plan B, right? My plan B is, okay, with Delta Plus suddenly spreading again, okay, if we go into another 1-2 months lockdown, what's our plan B? How are we going to handle that, okay? And when if the pandemic stretches, right, what's our plan C? So you must have a goal, but you must be able to adjust that goal to that different situation. I think that's, correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, that's what you meant by being relevant with your goals, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sam, your thoughts, Sam. say
yeah,
from Charitech point of view at the moment, what you started in last year and now where you are now, and is your goals relevant?
In a way, I think for considering we're in IT, our goals are still the goals that we had before are still relevant, but I think definitely like Rob, like what you said is very poignant, which is that the because things are changing so often, it's no longer annual. So for us as well, I don't think we can. So we're shifting now. It's more like quarterly, monthly. We do like short-term incentives, short-term like bursts, because we don't know what's going to happen in the next quarter, right? So but by and large, I think for us, our goals, I think thankfully the software industry is it's still it hasn't been rocked as hard as a lot of the other industries, especially like Rob, like yours, that is forward facing. There's a lot of social interaction, face to face required, right? Compared to ours, which is perhaps not as reliant on this type of direct interaction. But yeah, so definitely we've taken things online, virtually. But yeah, I think to answer your question, I think it's new times, new goals. I think that's probably is fair. Probably a good time to reshuffle those goals a little bit, and make it relevant.
Thank you, Sam. I think that the Sam's feedback is very good, because as some of us, like he put it, like Rob's business, Little Gym is very much social interaction, very much face to face. And yes, we need to do a lot of adjustment. Even us in Aisha, we need to do a lot of adjustment. However, business like Sam, where they are into software applications and all that, they pretty much don't have to change their goals, because their working model did not change so much. They were already. I think, Sam, we were already doing working from remote even before the pandemic, right?
Starting to, actually,
we're already in that stage.
Flexible,
yeah. So so that's two different perspectives. Yeah. One, I don't have to change my goals because my model doesn't change so much. Yeah, but we need to adjust to times, but I don't have to change my goals, right? But we have also two feedback, right, from Rob and Supra, saying that, we need to change the goals because our business model is different, the type of business we are in is different. So I guess, ladies and gentlemen, some of you will get these two different perspectives. If you're in the business of software, IT development and all that, where the interaction is a little bit more or less and gives you more openness to do business, great, you can maintain your goals, but however, like Sam put it, you need to adjust according to times, right? Whereas the guys and girls who are in the type of business where Rob and Supra and myself we are in, well, we had to adjust our goals as we go, right? And we had to do a lot of that, I guess. Maneuvering was one of the craziest things to do, but it's still fun. It's a lot of experience learned. But giving us the assumption that we will be prepared for the next one. But you know what? There's no such thing as how prepared can you be. Okay. Now, that brings to my my next question. Now we have known we need to adjust the goals. We also look at Sam saying, we maintain most of the goals. So now, with all these adjustments, what do we actually measure? Do we measure the performance in terms of the monetary values, or is there something that a behavior or actions that we want to see, that we want to measure, right? Because business goals are one thing, but that has to be measured. How do we measure these are going to happen, right? For example, if you're talking about sales, right? Are we going to measure the actual result, or are we going to measure also the effort, right? Because dynamics has changed. For example, in our business, we can't do most of the face-to-face anymore. We have to do a lot of online meetings. So how does this impact the way we close business, right? Similarly for Rob, how involved is your people in the sales or the revenue household generation, right? Because like Sam's people, I think they're directly involved in the revenue generation, right? Sales people, they're IT technical people, all are very directly involved. So then he can measure it from there. But in your environment, how are you going to measure, right? What do you think we should measure? Okay, I'll start with Mr. Supra, would you like to share with us your thoughts?
Yep. Thanks, Roy. If you go back to the basic fundamental of performance management, right? Performance management is not just, one-sided where you only look at something you can quantify, i.e. sales revenue. Okay, it's a very clear guideline. It's qualitative. It's quantitative. Okay, there are so many things you can actually quantify and then do a measurement. Okay, but there are areas which are qualitative. Okay, and how do you actually measure them? Okay, so when you want to look at this broad spectrum of it, you've got to look, when you do the review formula, quantitative and qualitative. Whatever that you feel is quantifiable, okay, is something, then you put it as a number, or in terms of customer retention rate, new customer acquisition, minimizing your losses, right?
Costing, yeah.
Costing, what's your new budget you're going to operate, because you probably have operated a business, handling, say, $1 million with maybe 10, 12 people, okay? But over this period, because, when we pre-pandemic, we don't really go into that detail, right? But during this pandemic, we were forced to become very detailed, right? To the point we started counting and calculating and computing every possible item, right? So that has already given you a certain level of experience on how you can now quantify what you want to quantify. But at the same time, you've got to look into the qualitative side of it. The qualitative aspect is where you want to look into your staff competency enhancement, your staff knowledge enhancement, right? Because all this can be valuable tools, okay, or strength to the organization as you move forward to 2022, right? So this is where you want to look at your team, what have they gained, what knowledge have, because everyone who has gone through the pandemic, even your team members, you don't just talk about you as the CEO or your GM or the managers, they are the only one who learn. No, I think down to the crux, everybody actually learn, right? And people also started figuring out, how can I do certain job faster? What can it be done? So if you actually sit down with your team and put a plan together, I think you will be able to come out with a much better performance management system. And the performance management system should be tying back to your goals, with how relevant you're going to make it, right? And from there is where you can cascade this whole entire thing to the team members, okay? Either by the department, from the department to the individuals, right? And I would say, I would look at two prongs. One is something that I can measure with a number, and the other area is in terms of competency enhancement to the organization. Maybe there is something that you developed during this period that, you found a better way of doing things that can enable you to cut costs, right? And I like the idea that Rob presented. They had, a flexible wage scheme, that if a staff can do something more, they can actually earn at par or even more, right? And these are things like, we never thought of doing it before the pandemic, right? But we came up with all these ideas during the pandemic. So there was a blessing in disguise for me in the pandemic.
Rob, your thoughts? No, with all your, you did a lot of adjustment. You were talking about, like being in a tennis game. One with the bank, and then with the complex. With the staff. You go bing bang, bing bang, bing bang, and yes, you managed to sort of like streamline things down. Sort of nail it down to these are the things I'm going to do. Now, based on the things that you want to do, how would you want to measure your people in terms of their contribution back to you, or in terms of them performing the job that they needed to perform, that they needed? So what areas would you measure in terms now with the adjustments you've made?
Yeah. Well, again, it's an evolving thing a little bit for us. We have a short term, like I said before, we have short term where we're very sort of cash focused, and then we need to, by next year, we move to a sort of more balanced sort of perspective on things. So at the moment, the whole of the systems are aligned to that sort of cash performance, and everybody understanding their role within that. So the marketing team is responsible for developing inquiries. So how many inquiries a week are they generating, and they understand what their targets are and so on. The sales team are going to convert those inquiries generally into introductory visits to come and visit the gym, so they know what their target is. And all these targets, we have the budget, we have a target, and if people meet their budget, they're going to get a reward. If they get to the target, they're going to get a bigger reward. So this is the very short-term focused way we're doing it. We're really getting everybody just focused on short-term performance. So say marketing, sales, the instructors, their pay is directly tied to how many classes they're running and how many kids are in their class. They're incentivized to enroll new kids, to retain the kids in their classes, to build their classes. That will directly build up their salary back to where it was before. So they're very, very much. So everybody is sort of aligned to that objective currently of short-term financial, because that's just the situation we're in. We're going to move to a I don't want to be, and that's a little bit too sort of hard-nosed and commercial for us as a company, really. And we want to transition to a more balanced approach with some of the things that Super was talking about. So as I said before, we're doing our business planning now. So, we'll have more of a balanced scorecard going into next year, which brings in recognition of training, brings in recognition of teamwork, has other sort of recognitions and rewards for the more subjective, the less, member surveying our members, how happy are they with us? Maybe people get good feedback from people. That happens a lot. So we bring in a much more balanced sort of appraisal framework moving into next year. So at the moment, we're very focused on the commercials, but that's not really where we want to be. That's not really our company culture. So we're really about teamwork and happy children and all this stuff. So, we really want to have a sort of appraisal framework, performance review, sort of company business systems all set up along that ethos, really. So we'll transition to that moving into the new year.
Well said, Bob. I think I picked up one thing you're saying is like, in currently the way you have done it is like, it's a very all-inclusive system that you're doing, that, everybody's action reflects into the company's either the revenue or to reduce the cost, or opportunity to increase the revenue. So you have made everybody now has a role to play in terms, even the instructors now, you incentivize if you actually get some new registrations, right? So I guess that's a very, I think for a short-term goal, I think that's a very good role, because you need to stabilize the business first, right?
It's short term.
Stability is more important at the moment.
Yeah.
Right.
And going back to the sort of annual appraisal, say that's a weekly report card everybody's getting. It's not an annual. That is a weekly report card, right? Yeah.
You're right. I guess people I'll come back to the report card. I'm very, very curious on the report card. I know it's been, it's like buzzing in my head. I'll come back to that from you. I'll get a bit more explanation on how you design your report card at the moment. How do you implement it? So that I'll get from you later. But now I just want to go to Sam for a while. Sam, you said your goals are not moving, right? Business, you fix your goals and it's going to stay there. And you may want to change certain things, but now, along the lines of that goal, what are you measuring your team? I mean, are you taking the very quantitative approach, or are you taking more of a qualitative approach? Because in your kind of work, a lot of things can be easily quantified, right? Yeah. But how about the more of the qualitative, the customer service, the how should I say, customer retention, those areas? How do you measure all that?
Good question. I think like Supra mentioned just now, and yourself, I think definitely our goals should very much be able to be measured, right? Like people talk about SMART goals, measurable and relevant. So I think for us, we keep it definitely very quantitative. So we track by numbers. But so we go by like jobs, missions. We call them projects. So it's every quarter we will have deadlines for certain projects, and then that's how we work in terms of measuring performance. The other side would be something like for those customer facing will be perhaps a little bit more difficult but still quantifiable, which is in terms of like customer surveys. So customers, the people our team interacts with, they'll be ranked.
Feedback, you mean?
Yes, feedback. Correct. Yes. So
okay.
we'll get feedback, and then from there we can kind of grade based on the level of satisfaction that the clients have. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic, gentlemen. Now I'll go to my next one. Okay. All right, Mr. Supra. This is we've been talking a lot about performance appraisal and all that, but I think this is something personally I like to bring up, and that's something that I want you to share with everybody. I would like you to share, with everyone here, the difference between conducting a performance appraisal for a probation period as compared to conducting a performance appraisal either quarterly or year-end or twice a year. I mean, what is the difference between a probationary performance appraisal as compared to a year-end or an annual performance review? Could you share with us? Just shed some light on that.
Okay, both are basically measuring the performance. Okay, in the case of a probationary performance management, it's basically for you to identify that the new person that you have hired will undergo a 3 months or a 6 months probationary period. Are they suitable for that position? Can they fit into that job role, right? And this is where also there's been quite a number of cases that have gone to industrial court, and companies have lost cases because the employee comes in, 3 months passes by, and of course the employers somehow know that they're not performing or not doing their job and all that. But there was no reviews done. There was no documentation. Then come at the end of the 3 months, they go like, I think you're not performing. I got to, not confirm you and terminate you, right? So this is where the employee then has the option to go to the Industrial Relations Office and file under Section 20 for wrongful dismissal. Okay, and if you end up in court and you cannot justify, you will lose 12 months salary. Okay, so I would normally advise my clients, say, when you hire someone day one, you already know what you're hiring them for. You have got your job description, your KRAs or whatever. But at that moment, I wouldn't go straight into a KPI kind of a measurement. I would more look, they have to perform the job role, but I would assess them more from a competency aspect of it to really see whether they fit my organization, they fit that job role. Based on that competency, can they then perform, right? Because that is why it's called that probationary period, because you're trying to identify the suitability of that new employee. Okay, so I would normally recommend, say, for a 3 months, have a monthly chat with the employee. Document, right? What has the employee done right? What has he done wrong? Where are the gaps? Where do you see that he needs to work on improvement? And what, as a senior manager or line manager or whoever, the appraiser, should then say, okay, I'll work with you and see how I can support you to perform. You do not hire an employee so they can fail, right? It doesn't make sense, right? So you shouldn't have hired in the first place. So if someone is not performing, I think isn't it your duty to work with them to try to support so they can, meet the performance goals and be confirmed, right? Otherwise, you terminate this guy, you take another 3 months trying to find another replacement. At that point, there's a vacant position, okay? So I will do a monthly review, e-feedback, and based on all that I've done, if still doesn't meet the expectation, yes, of course, I will, say not confirmed, you are terminated, and even if I go to court, I think I've got a 90% chance of winning, right? Touch wood, okay? On a confirmed employee, right? They are already a confirmed employee, right? So they then fall into that whole performance management system that we are talking about, where, you can either do a quarterly review. If you can do quarterly, will be fantastic, right? And Rob's case, he's starting to do monthly right now, which is even greater, because you are constantly having discussion with the team. And I don't think, doing that review is actually a waste of time, because a lot of people think that's a waste of time. Let people go and do the job. Okay, I think as a manager, a CEO of a business and all that, you are responsible towards the career of a person that you have hired. And isn't it your job to work with them and make it successful?
Yeah.
Right? So if you do this, then you can weed out people who are not really performing. Right? I don't think you have to go to the point that you need to then introduce a PIP plan and all that. Because you're working together with them constantly. They do understand, okay, I'm not performing. Maybe, I'm in the wrong position. Right? Then you probably, if you think they've got a good attitude and good mentality, can they fit another role and they can perform it? So you probably want to look at things like that. So that monthly review or quarterly review gives you this opportunity, like, we talk about goals and, adjusting your goals, right? So this review gives you a chance to actually work with them so they become successful. Because when every employee becomes successful, the organization will definitely become successful, right?
Yep. Yep.
So that's your job. So maybe I sound too idealistic, but I think that's what we should aim for, right? After this 18 months of lockdown and pandemic and all the readings that we had to do, right? So I think this is the learning point.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to just share with you my experience when I first, this is about 10 years ago, when I first actually started with Mr. Surprise, and I worked for him, when I first started. It was my first, I started in February, and it was in December. So we were having a coffee, and he asked me, okay, let's do your performance review. We didn't have forms in our hand, but he had areas that we already discussed earlier. So the question was like this: did you do this? Yes or no? No. Okay. Next question. Did you do this? I think I did. Yes. Okay. So there you go. Finished. You didn't perform that well this year because you had more no's than yes. And you know what? I honestly, after now so many years in the business, we have been together doing business now. Ladies and gentlemen, it has to be that straightforward. Right? It has to be. You have to build a level of relationship with your people. If you can't do to every level, at least to the second level, the managers and all that, build that relationship of openness where you can tell them, did you do yes or no only? Because, for example, if the target is 100,000 sales, right, and the person did 85,000, that means he did not perform his target. He didn't hit the target, period. Yeah, you did 85,000, very good, but you still didn't hit your target. It has to be that crystal clear sometimes. At the same time, we also need to look at effort, or the qualitative elements which we learn. But one thing, Mr. Supra, I'm going to probe you further on this, right? And this is something that appears in the industrial relations court all the time, right? You see, when we do performance probationers at a lower position and all that, where it's easier to, when they come in, they've got a job description and we go on. But when we hire people on senior positions, and I've seen in a lot of organizations, the CEO don't have JD. The GM's JD is not existent. It's done when the company was only open, but it's never reviewed, so because they assume when you enter at that position, you are like the legal term they use is you have to know or you ought to know, right? In those scenarios, Mr. Supra, I mean, like when the person at that senior level, how do we handle that probationary period? In your experience and in your thoughts, share with us.
No, I think even at the higher level, it becomes a little bit easier to manage, in the sense that, the person is experienced, has gone through jobs, and, unless that person is a serial constructive dismissal and wrongful dismissal claimant, because we have encountered situations like that this guy just goes into a company, then, he gets fired, then he files a case, then he applies another job, and then he goes through. So we have seen his name appearing a few times in the industrial court, right? So, but when you hire someone at a higher level, okay, you must have a clear guideline as to why you hired him for, right? There's no point you're hiring someone at the general manager's level and you got no scope of work, you got no KRAs. What is it? Right? So technically, you cannot also really use you ought to know and right in court, because the court will then still ask you, right? Yes, he ought to know. But right now, when he ought to know to do something, then how do you then benchmark and say, there's a gap in his performance? So how do you determine that gap? The gap of performance is the one that enables you to clearly define and say he has underperformed or is a poor performer. And if you cannot measure that gap, how are you going to say? It's like you told me the story that I did. I had a 10 clear questionnaire, right? Of course, I gave you more time to answer, not just yes and no, right? I asked you, this done, meet target, meet target, meet target. Then you go through the whole thing. Of course, certain areas of the KRA has got a higher weightage compared to others.
Yes.
So when you're very clear into that, the question is whether I wanted to do that to terminate, or did I do it so you can understand that you had a performance gap, okay? And what we need to do, right? So what is the working plan then? So then we came up with a improvement plan structure as to how can we get you back into that performance level. Because sometimes you have got people who perform at the probation, got confirmed, after confirmation, performance went down. So how do you then handle situations like that? So whether you are at a clerical, executive, managerial, or a C level, you know what? I think having a clear job description, which is more like a KRA-based, key result area-based kind of a job description, would really help in, mitigating the expectation and the delivery of the expectation. So you need the gap. You need that because you need to identify the gaps.
Thank you. I guess a lot of times I think when we talk to people and when we manage issues and all that, we always realize, and I always tell this to HR managers, over the years, guys, when you do something, when the person comes in for the job, you need to be very clear what are his skills. You need to understand, does it actually fit to the job you're going to take him in? A lot of times we when someone comes for the interview, you need to understand they are selling themselves to you. They are there to market themselves, So as I always tell this, I think there's a point that people need. When you're hiring someone, you need to be very clear what you want. Right? And what is the expectation? Like Ms. Supra put it, the expectation has to be clear even in the interview. That, I'm hiring you for this position for you to bring me these results. Right? If I'm hiring you at a $10,000 salary, I'm hiring you to bring about this change and to drive these results. So that has to be very clear. Right? And most of the times we'll find that when you actually talk to both parties, that was not made clear. Both assume that, like we said, you have to know or ought to know. Yeah, what does he really have to know? Right? That the have to know has to be told to him. These are the things you have to know. Right? So I guess to sum it up, this is an area where a lot of organizations or HR teams actually neglect the probationary area, where that's actually the one that brings you a lot of problem. The other one I like to share is this. A lot of organizations, when they will look at a PIP when they are ready to terminate someone, a PIP is just like a license or a first step to terminate someone. When you have enough records of performance discussion throughout the period, a simple discussion and an email to follow up is just good enough. You don't need to suddenly come up with a new PIP just to take disciplinary action. It has to be a continuous act. Because you know why? If let's say you still fire him for poor performance, and he goes to court, he can actually go around and say, the last 1 year, they actually rated me a very good performance rating. Last 6 months, nothing was told to me. Today, I'm being told in these 3 months, I did not perform very well. So again, using performance appraisal as a form to terminate employee or to use it as a way to punish employees is definitely something that will backfire. Because we already have made the decision to terminate before we started the PIP plan. We say, we'll do all this, definitely this guy is not going to hit it, and then we will nail him. Right? But the thing is that, you know what, it's a pure afterthought. You're going to get into trouble anyway. Even a novice IR court chairman will look at that and say, come on, really? Right? So just to share with you guys, you have to be, every position you need to treat it by itself. Cannot make it a very generalized way to manage performance, especially for probationers. All right. About to sum up, I would like to call upon, I think we are coming towards the end here. So I would like to call upon, right? I think, Rob, you have shared with us quite a bit of what you're doing and all that. But I want you to share with us, yes, Mr. Supra, you raised your hand.
I think you missed one part where you said you wanted to get back to Mr. Rob's report.
Yes, yeah, I'm coming back there. Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Rob, yes. Now we need you to if you don't mind, it's going to be a bit, you share with us, how do you manage this report card? And this is very interesting. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get this, understand this report card, and you know what? Let's put this report cards on our people. Come on, Rob, share with us.
Well, the report card we're running at the moment, like I say, it is a little bit commercially orientated because it matches our short-term cash sort of commercial goals. I think the first thing I'd say about report cards is I think the company culture is important. Report cards, especially when you're measuring very directly people's performance, I think they can have negative effects as well if you don't have the right sort of company culture to sort of back it up. Then you can introduce sort of elements of competition between people, and people even doing sort of bad things to make themselves look good. So there are definitely pitfalls with having a very defined report card like we have at the moment. So we have to couple ours with a working culture, which is very much around sort of a passion about the business that we have. I'm lucky to be in a business where my staff have a lot of passion for what they're doing, so they won't sacrifice that for a report card. We emphasize teamwork very heavily. So some of the goals are team orientated, not individual. In fact, the main ones are team orientated, not individual orientated, actually, for our business. So when you come from that culture, the report card is not so much about, okay, if you don't perform, we've got our documentation so we can get rid of you in the courts later. It's not sort of about that. That all needs to be documented in case, but that's not a route we have to go down, to be honest. Our report cards are about supporting training, identifying where training is needed, and trying to bring everybody up and recognize good performance, reward great performance. That's where our report card is sort of coming from. Just to be clear, the stuff you guys are talking about is critical, very important, but it shouldn't be the driving force report card, or you might set up quite a toxic sort of atmosphere in your company if you're that way around. But yeah, our report card is just mapping the company, the business objectives to each person's contribution towards those objectives, and making everybody, like we just talked about, everybody's role very clear, everybody having their own sort of KPIs, their own. We're not quite there on this yet, actually. This is the plan for next year, but the idea is everybody has their own tailored sort of report card with their specific KPIs on how they affect the business, and maybe 3 to 5 KPIs per person, so it's not too overwhelming, and they're able to just focus on their area, whilst, as I say, also the teamwork dynamic needs to be maintained through it. So I don't know if that gets the sort of detail you were talking about. Actually, I don't know what sort of detail you specifically want, but that's the sort of ethos behind our report card. And I'll say next year, like I said earlier, we hope to bring a lot more subjective stuff and have a lot more reward and recognition for the going above and beyond, pulling together as a team, getting a good feedback from a client, a customer, bring in these sort of things, how you're completing your training, and make the report card more balanced, as opposed to the very commercial, objective sort of financial one we have at the moment.
So in a way, what you have done is you've taken each person's, the company's direction, meaning to say your cash flow, your cash management requirement, break it up into each individual person's role in there within the scope of work they have, okay? And within that, you have identified areas that they need to perform, right? Am I getting this right? Okay.
Yep, that's right. So everybody
understands
their role.
Yeah. So this is for the short term, because this is the turnaround need of the business, right? This is a need to do, and I have to do situation. So I think one of the things I'm hearing from you is that you have sort of like developed, you have a group of people who have high ethics, where, although it's very cash driven, nobody is doing anything that is, how should I say, immoral or unethical to get to that goal. So that is something that we need to build. All right. I think, ladies and gentlemen, I think a lot of us are in small businesses where we have this anything 30, 20, or even more, right? Even 50, right? But when you have that sort of like an open relationship with your people and make them understand, I share with you a story. We once did this. We suggested this for my client. You see, everybody was not really fully understanding what the company was going through and the financial distress the company was in, as business was bad. So one day I said to the CEO, I think we should do this. Can you get some monitors, put in the production area, all the main area where staff are, and then we run PowerPoint slide of our company's financial situation at the moment, weekly sales, monthly sales, where we are dropping, right? We start putting that out. Say nothing to be embarrassed. Right. Within 2 weeks of putting all those information out, once we started, the issue on, I'm not getting enough salary, I'm not getting this, I'm not getting that, all just stopped. People just realized, in a small town in Perak, just having that job with the company situation like that, I'm very happy. I'm just going to do my best to make sure, each time a team does well, it comes out in that monitor. They will come out. Today, our wastages, zero wastages, zero spoilage. So that at the same time recognizing people as well, right? So that sort of, I think, organized, and that company has 600 employees, right? You can't go and speak to everybody, but when you share the right message, right, like Rob said, be open. No point telling your employee otherwise, because the employee will look at you and say, well, I don't have a car, you're driving a Mercedes. Here I am struggling to pay my car. You've taken 30% of my salary. Rather, when you switch it around and be open and say, this is a situation the company is in. Right? And that actually works. When you're really in trouble, you have to look, like Rob said, look, we are in so much trouble, I need to let you guys know. And it turned around very well, and everybody came back. And it's now their survival too. And with the promise, we do this well, next year we're going to be even better. So that is something for them to look forward to, right? So my take on this is that organizations, I think to this time, you have to be really open with your people. If you are doing badly, put it out there. We are doing badly, right? If you're doing very well, put it out there too. We are doing very well. And this is how we're going to take care of you, right? So there must be a level of openness in performance management, or even any form of continuous improvement we are looking at. There must be that level of openness. I guess you gentlemen agree with me from the beginning. This is what we are talking about, right? So thank you. I totally agree with what Rob said. Sam, your take, just a short summary of what you have done and what you're looking forward in 2022.
Okay. Yeah, I think definitely, like we mentioned, in terms of our goals, I think we're still very much on track. It's just we're adjusting with the new normal, like everyone else. One thing that perhaps to more effectively, or perhaps I think that we are sort of changing, is we're adjusting some of our metrics. So traditionally, one very common one is attendance, right? So you make sure everyone, your team, you want them to come in, on certain days, minimize, medic MCs and that kind of thing. So I think now very much we're shifting more to, either doing away with that metric, or having it monitored remotely. I know some of our clients, or I've heard of people who implement things like computer activity tracking. If that's relevant, especially with a lot more of this kind of flexible work schedule and working from home, right? These are things that organizations are looking into, and we've received queries about that. So I think that's my take. That's our take on it. How we're going to kind of change to adapt to our new environment. Yeah, and then
Thank you, sir.
yeah, in terms of training as well, I think taking things, like this, like what we're doing right now, whereas back before MCO, we would probably be sitting, in a hotel room somewhere, like in a ballroom, having this conversation. Now we're doing it online. Right? It's similarly,
yeah.
I think, we're taking it to a different
Yeah.
platform. Same deal, but same but different.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think Sam's challenge is always. I think this is something that he's got a group of very young programmers, developers, very highly brilliant guys, and all that. So it's basically he that's a bunch of people that he has to manage, and then he's got a very driven programmers who are very they want to be the best and they want to do. So they got a bunch of very nice boys and girls that they work there, and they're always committed. And I always wonder how he gets them to do that. They are always friendly, cheerful, happy. When you talk to them, I always say, how do you do that, man?
Nasi kanda.
So that is an environment he has created there for the work environment he has created, right? To all because understanding his own age group of people working for him, right? They have that level of relationship that works for them. So again and again we go back to relationships. Now, Mr. Supra, your take, sir, on the whole. Give us a sum up, sir. Your whole take on this.
Well, going back, should we do appraisal? I say yes. And how do we do it? I think, you can discuss about the company's goals, what you have done, did the company achieve it, and why didn't company not achieve it? Okay. Then you look into what the employees have done and contributed to the business. What kind of skill level have they gained during this pandemic period, right? And simply even asking them, say, how did you feel about your contribution towards the business, or even in your job that you were doing? Let them talk and ask them about the challenges that they face, right? So note down all these things, and then this is where it enables you to formulate a new plan, okay? And then you can fertilize that whole plan that you've got so you can grow, right? And I think one key area is for both the employer and the employee to sit down and also put together an analysis of what did you actually learn during this pandemic? During this 18 months, what did we learn? And what are potential pitfalls that we should avoid going forward? So that is why I say it is important to do the review, because you know what? You're not just doing a performance review on the employee, you're also doing like an organizational scan to identify overall with the contribution and input from the employees as well. Okay? And as we all know, we found out that during this period, we in human resource will say employee assets, right? And there are times I said employees were a liability, especially when they go to industrial court and they cost the company so much money. But you got to now really look at your business on how you survive, because it's like Rob was saying, he needs to keep all these good people. He cannot afford to lose the talent, right? Because it's going to be very difficult getting new talents who can fit into his mold, his culture. He's got a fantastic work culture, right? So the value of what they contribute to you should be seriously taken into consideration. And if you can afford a little bit, I would suggest, do a small adjustment. Or if your business is coming back, right, whatever salary cut that you have earlier on cut for the past 6 months or 8 months or whatever, slowly try to reinstate that. So work towards, so you also set, this is one of your key goals, that we want to work towards this. So can you imagine your team members or your employees are going to feel like, hey, the company is not just wanting to set a target and say, we want to achieve 1 million or 5 million or 10 million, right? And this is what we expect you to do. But we say, we want to reinstate all this thing back for you. You know what? Let's work towards this. If we can hit this target, we will reinstate a 5%. We hit this target, we reinstate another 5%. You know, we'll get you back to your previous salary, and then let's look at the reward. If we did much better, then probably come up with an incentive plan or a half-month bonus or something for, you know, whatever they have gone through. And then I think you will be able to drive your business much more productively and effectively moving forward. And I think that's all I like to say.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And my take on this whole day today was, you know, fantastic, because we had views from 3 different type of businesses. You know, like we have one which is pretty much dependent on people, and then where Supra had to also, we had to do some work from home. We had to do a lot of adjustment. Sam had a different perspective from us. Ladies and gentlemen, moving forward, do we really need appraisals? Of course we do, right? We do. And do we need to make it an annual? Not necessarily, right? It's a continuous thing. Rob put it very well. It's an ongoing thing. It's continuous, right? Next, how are we going to measure? Do we need to do a short-term plan or a long-term plan? All right. I would suggest, you know, you start with your short-term plan first, because the short-term plan tells you to stabilize your business first, close the gaps that needs to be closed quickly, right? So you need your short-term plan there. So your performance management or whatever you're going to link, it has to be linked to that, to the short-term plans. Like Rob said, the report card actually maps out each individual person or position. You can say, if you're a bigger organization, you can say each individual positions, what they're going to contribute. So it's a long way forward, ladies and gentlemen. There's no quick fix for this, right? And I think all my 3 friends here will agree, there's no quick fix for this, right? So with that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, let's move forward to 2022 in a more robust manner. And Rob, we wish you all the best, right? And hopefully when you come to Penang, I'll catch up with you. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, you should visit Penang at Paragon, you know, the little gym. And, you know, those of you with children, drop by, you know, check it out, right? Drop when you're in Penang, please drop by. We can do some teh tarik in Penang or nasi kandar. Okay, so gentlemen, thank you very much for your valuable inputs and, you know, your thoughts. Yeah. Well, right, ladies and gentlemen,
we still got Q&A.
We still got Q&A. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, some questions. Anyone with a question? Do we have some questions?
Yeah.
Any questions coming in, Sam?
No. No, I didn't see any.
Okay.
Let me see. Oh yeah, I think just now. Oh yeah, I think Eject says he does. Oh yeah, I think I mentioned to you guys that we have Jason here. I don't know if he's still here. He's doing financial advisory. I think I mentioned before, right? So he's sat in.
Hold on, I think there's a question here.
Yeah.
Hold on.
So
in
Jason's
the chat
there.
box.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let me read out that. During the lockdown, there are companies that need to maintain their headcount, and some companies suffering from cash flow. What is the advice for maintaining a healthy cash flow?
I think Rob mentioned cash flow just now.
I think Rob will be the best advisor for this question.
Yeah, but yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe Jason can weigh in after Rob. We have Jason
come.
there. Yeah.
Rob, please go ahead. Share with us.
Sure. I mean, I can only really talk about sort of my company, so to speak. I mean, we definitely, cash flow is the #1 focus. So the first thing you got to do is to focus on it. You know, there's no magic solution here, I would say. You've got to for us, we've got to focus on our revenue building, our cash building, that side of things, which is all about motivating staff and using tools like we don't have the ability to necessarily be paying full salaries at the moment. So that's why we've implemented a new, for us, staff cost is a huge part of our cost control. So we implemented a variable pay model, like I said before, that does reduce the amount of our salary costs at the moment. But as the business grows, the salaries will grow, and the staff can buy into this because they can see that in the longer term, they can make more money. And I'm sort of happy for them to make more money in the longer term if they put in the commitment in the shorter term to help us build up and get out of this in the first place. So that's one of the biggest things we've done, because that would have been the main thing that killed us, is if we didn't tackle our staff costs when our revenue's fallen away. And at one point fell away completely. Now it's recovering, and we have to control the staff costs. So that was the biggest thing for us, the control of the staffing costs. Then motivating staff to build revenue. That's partly through that variable pay model, also through various other incentives and little bonuses that we give for cash collection. The rest of it is fighting with shopping malls. It's
getting the best deal.
Trying to speak to bankers and see if they can do a little bit more, and scrambling and not spending money you have to, and just no magic solution there. But the variable pay model is probably the key thing we did specific, and hopefully with a benefit for the longer term of being a more robust sort of model for the longer term as well. So I think it's really important to come through this period stronger as well. So survive, but also have hopefully that sort of leaner, sort of more focused approach will have a longer term benefit. That's why we're all sort of hanging in there, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Supra, your thought on this? I mean, 18 months we were up and down. How did we manage? Share with everybody.
I guess we were lucky because we reacted very fast. Actually, as at March 16 itself, I've already mobilized the entire team to start working from home before the 6 o'clock announcement. I kind of suspected we might go into a lockdown, but I did not expect the lockdown will be for such a long period of time. So we mobilized the entire team to work from home. We immediately I upgraded our software and I signed up for Google Workspace. So there's a chat room there, there's email there, there's document, task list and all that. So that enables me to disseminate and distribute tasks, things to be done and everything within a one platform. It's mobile enabled, it's laptop enabled, right? So we were just operating, and for our meeting, face-to-face meeting, we were either doing Zoom or Google Meet, because with the Google Workspace, everything just comes as. And immediately I took the decision to cut my office space into half, expecting that, at the end of the day, we're not going to be sitting down in the office for a long period of time. So that saved a lot more money in terms of, Then we kind of went into a few other items that at that point we actually sat down within that first lockdown. We just went down item by item by item of every cost element to see if I can save 10 ringgit or 20 ringgit, right? Because as you add all these things, then, it does help. So went through that extent, okay, but we basically wanted to ensure that we do not cut anybody's salary or whatsoever. So we wanted to keep everything going as the, right? Of course, at the management level, we did some adjustment, but I think that is supposed, for you to do. You're supposed to do that because that's part of your responsibility, right?
Okay.
So that kind of helped us. Maybe I'd like to hear from Jason, right? Being a financial consultant, maybe he's got tips for us, right, on how we can manage our.
Yeah, Jason, please shoot.
Thank you. Yeah, first of all, thanks Sam for inviting for these programs, and then I find this is very interesting program, and then I have some insightful information from Supra and Rob as well. Okay. So of course, aligned with today's topics about performance studies, performance appraisal, that I think in the industry, in the business, I look at three perspectives, like what Rob mentioned just now from the beginning about productivity. Yeah, productivity, and it will affect our capital, which in the other words, it will be the cash flow of a business. They have to bring in sales, and then we have to take care of the variables of the expenses. But at the same time, the people, we also, the third perspective, the third factor that we need to look into is the people. So the people, I hear clearly from the beginning when I joined these programs, Supra mentioned about you increase the salary for your employee in order to elevate their motivation level. I believe this, Rob mentioned, we want to get back stronger after the recovery. Okay, to get back stronger, to increase the motivation level of the company. This is, from this perspective, I'm seeing, maybe I get back to the cash flow first. As we can see, we like to have our company to make money, to be high productivity, and we would like to have our people are so motivated to, like what we talk about Sam's company. All the youngsters are so motivated to work. They are high performance, and when I think about this performance, I think about, like, for example, when we want to design a car that can really perform, can run really fast, but at the meantime, we would like to have the braking system as well in the car, which when come to unexpected any event, they want to brake, right? The same thing when we want to have our people to perform in the company, to bring in sales to the company. This is all about people. I think we need to have this risk management as well. From my perspective of financial planning, business want to grow. We want the business with high performance, to link with the car that have high performance. The car with high performance need to have a good braking system, need to have good safety belt, need to have good airbag, so that the driver of the car, they can really align with the performance of the car. So as we can see, I do like what Supra mentioned, that we need to talk to our employee during the appraisal and talk to them, how do they feel about the pandemic, what do we learn. And one thing I learned, especially because I have a lot of those SME, SMIs, business owners as my clients. So as many of them as we can see, when the company make money, some of them, they like to cash out the money to the shareholders, and they don't really leave the cash flow into the company, the business itself. So, and when during the lockdown, I remember clearly the last April, I talked to my client. They do feel the financial stress that they have the high drain out of the operation fixed expenses, because they need to retain their good employees. So we cannot afford, especially right now, all the demands come back, and then short of workers. Many of the company are short of good employees right now because they have changed their job. We hardly to get them back to operate the machine, to run the machines, or to run the business. So one thing about cash flow, we need to retain. When we have high performance, we need to have a good braking system. When we have good profit of the business, we need to manage the cash of the company. Place this elsewhere, as well as the money still can grow in terms of investment, in terms of the money market option that we can go. That we need to take care, especially when just now Supra mentioned, what about the coming lockdown is back? And then how is the company prepared for that, from the risk management perspective? And of course, for the people, we want them to be highly motivated to come back to work. One thing, because for me, employee working in a company is like betting their future, betting their life together with this business, because they want to have a secure future financially from the company. When the company is doing well, they know they will have increment, they will have bonuses. Okay, so they need to have the peace of mind to really fight with the company. This is what I'm seeing. So at this point, from the risk management perspective, is there insurance that covering if they are diagnosed COVID-19? Are the salesperson, they need to travel physically for the sales? Are the travel insurance cover with COVID-19? Is the company going to cover that, to ensure that your future will still be here? Your cash flow for your family will still be there. If something happens to you, company will take care of your family. There is insurance that cover that. for the people part. At least they still, some of many of them, they still okay. I feel comfortable to work with this company. They plan ahead, not only asking for the business, but they plan ahead for the employee benefits. That okay, if diagnosed COVID, medical bill is being taken care. If diagnosed COVID, there's a key person compensation to be given to your family who left behind. This is my perspective from this the people motivations. Okay, maybe one thing I missed out just now about, I believe if the coming lockdown come back again, that could be the account receivable that we could worry. If those companies, they are not managed well, but we manage well, but there could be the account receivable that because of the further lockdown, they cannot pay us. So there is the insurance to cover on those credit terms, the trade credit insurance, that can still retain the healthy cash flow in our own business, regardless our clients, they are not prepared for that, but we are prepared. This is the claims that I think during the past 18 months that we are doing quite a lot, that need to look into the client's account about to help them to receive, to collect the credits. This is what I can share. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jason.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
We got another question.
Gentlemen, don't go yet. There's another question here, okay? I think this is very much what Supra pulled up just now. Is there any way to quantify the qualitative traits in appraisal? Can we use a rating system to evaluate? Gentlemen.
Can we use that?
Can we use a rating system to evaluate?
Yeah, of course you will use a rating system, but the question is how you then, define the different ratings. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Say if you say someone, you're talking about a quantitative aspect of it, or qualitative aspect of it. Okay? I'll give you a simple example. Okay? Typically in the HR industry, say if you want to write a letter on increment and bonuses, okay, the typical standard letter that you will get is we refer to your performance. We're very pleased and hereby would like to award you 1 month bonus and another 500 ringgit increment with effect from January, okay? And all other terms and conditions shall remain unchanged, Thank you for your contribution. Okay, that's it. Okay? Is that letter wrong? No, it's not. Okay? It is not wrong. Okay? Did the staff produce the letter? Okay? The quality that I'm talking about is when we in IHR write an increment or bonus letter, we will approach it to saying, how did the company do? First paragraph. Has the company done well throughout this year? Has the company hit its financial goals, targets, new customer acquisition, lost customers, how the industry has been? Okay? Then relate this whole thing to the employee's performance to say, hey, Roy Daniel, you have done well, you met expectation, but you have met expectation in this. I think you can improve on this other areas. And since you met expectation, you know what, I would like to award you this bonus. And so then, to me, the letter of increment becomes more meaningful, right? That you actually understand the company performance, the industry, what has happened, how did I perform, do I have areas of improvement, or even you can put in that letter that, we would like you to undergo a training program first quarter of next year in the areas of, financial management, right? Or, manager for non-HR manager, any kind of training program. So we'll mention in that document itself. So that's, okay, so you saw the first document versus the second document, right? So this is what I'm talking about, qualitative, okay? It's the same letter, but so how do you then? So my benchmark is meeting expectation is just producing that letter, okay? Say you get an increment, but for me to exceed expectation the way that we have actually given you how it should be written, right? So that's how I kind of measure qualitative. Okay, letters are out, but whether there's quality in it, and does it make a difference in terms of impact?
On the just to add on to what you said, is a surprise. Sometimes in the hotels, we know that hotels will see, when you look at customer service, right? Customer service generally there's one feedback piece of note that is given to every outlet. Is the same thing that you rate, right? Now, how do you then look at how staff worked hard? Is basically we looked at the level of feedback that is coming from the customer. Right? In the hotel industry, it's all about customer experience, right? At the end of the day, whether you did your job or not, it's all pretty much how the customer responds in the customer feedback form. The reason being, you see, the perception in hotels is there's no such thing as housekeeping did the mistake. No, when housekeeping did the mistake, the customer only looks at the hotel did a mistake, right? So when the customer feedback comes in, it sort of like looks at a totality. The people from F&B cannot say, "Wow, you know what? We contributed to the good service," or we contributed to the bad service. But it is quantified, something which is feedback by the customer based on the number of goods and bad remark. We look at, okay, this is the level of service, right? But to actually define the good service, we have standards, right? So these are the standards you meet. So even as a manager, when I rate someone in terms of customer service capabilities, we will rate them based on how they, on a daily basis, they engage with guests. Right? That should be the basis, because we have already set the standards for them, how to behave, the standards of behavior. So I think to quantify something which is qualitative, you need to establish, I think, some point of standards, I think Mr. Supra would agree, a code of conduct would be something like that, Mr. Supra. So when you establish something like that, which is a qualitative contribution, right? But you need to set some standards to it, right? For example, letter writing is a good example. Produces the basic letter without accuracy and no spelling errors. That is meeting expectation. What is beyond expectation? You define it as clearly articulates the letter, personalizes the letter to the recipient, clearly describes company's business and also company's position, and the message is very clear. So here the definition, although something that is qualitative, you can actually qualitate it by putting the standard that you expect to see. So that standard could be exceeding expectation as compared to coming out with the letter accurately, spelled properly, and the name and everything, all information is there. Right? That is meeting expectation. So I would say the qualitative can be still measured if you put a standard to it. All right? Okay.
Yeah.
Any more questions before we call it a day?
Well, seeing as we're talking about all that, I guess shameless plug, because we're a software company. Why not set those standards with software?
Yes, yes.
So anyway, I'll
That's
let
a good pitch, mate.
well, yeah, we
Sam, would you like to show the video we had earlier, Sam?
Yeah, finish it off with the video.
yeah, let's finish off with the video. So yeah, thanks everyone for attending. But yeah, let's.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Supra. Thank you, Rob. Thank you,
Thanks,
Sam.
everybody.
Introducing.
Take care, guys. See you soon.
Introducing VPA, comprehensive and powerful virtual performance appraisal platform, now available on vStaff. So it comes complete, comprehensive management, input, forms, merit-based measurements, links with all the right modules, and of course comprehensive reports. What more do you need to drive your employees' performance, engagement, and growth? Request a demo with vStaff today.